Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the showdown between the Warriors of Chaos, who shall be led by the KFC King, and the Dwarves, who are going to be led by the Slayer King. Unger Iron Fist is most certainly up in the toe. So as far as build goes here in the back, it's very much going to be a standard anti-Dwarf build. So we do have three groups of the standard Chaos Chariots. Now these guys, in my opinion, are quite a bit better than the Gorby's Chariots. Yes, Gorby's Chariots hit harder and, in a vacuum, right? They're going to perform better than Chaos Chariots. But in terms of a cost perspective, I feel like Chaos Chariots costing $750, I think against $1,100 for the Gorby's Chariots, are just so much better. Because Dwarves, Empire, a lot of these powder-centric factions are so good at isolating high-value targets. So for example, if you come in with two Gorby's Chariots, the Dwarves are going to have a much easier time dealing with those two targets than they would with three Chaos Chariots. So I think that going wider is usually going to be a little bit more efficient against the Dwarves and these powder factions. And these bad boys can certainly do some work. I mean, they have decent stats. They have a good charge bonus at 76. And they do have 40 weapon strength, with a good bonus for infantry of 18. And their AP isn't terrible. It's 11. So I feel like this is all you really need against Dwarves. That's not to say you can't make Gorby's Chariots work, but this is just my personal preference, and I think it's pretty good. So we got three of the chariots right here. We do also have three groups of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. So just in case, he goes with a wild gyrocopter build and has that Dawi Air Force coming in, I wanted to have something to at least occupy him. The gyrocopters, especially the steam cannons, can actually outrange these guys. The Marauder Horsemen have 70 range, and gyrocopters, I believe, with the steam cannons do have 90. So they can outrange you, but at the very least, they're going to have to deal with these guys. It gives you at least an answer. And also, they're not bad against other troops. They have good AP. You can get around the back. You can throw at Slayers. You can throw at Longbeards. You can go after Thunders. These guys can actually do some okay work. And worst case scenario, you charge them in the back. You use them as a disruption tool, just a bit of a, well, not a hammer. I don't know what I would call it. Like, one of those things like the doctor like hits your knees, just like test your reflexes. It's more like that instead of a hammer. So we got three of those guys here in the main line. It's going to be Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And, I was feeling a little bit spicy, and I got some Chosen in the back. So Chosen with great weapons. If these guys are ignored, they can just mow through Dwarven forces. I mean, they're designed to kill armor. So we're going to see if he focuses them with the guns. It's going to be a little bit of trouble, but you know what? I hope they get in there and do some work. So we got four groups of Chaos Warriors, like I said. We do also have the Ever Chicken, and he's just such a good pick against Dwarves. He's large, he has good disruption. Yeah, his damage output isn't going to be great because he does magic and doesn't have the best AP, but you just run him in, you jump on top of the guns, you use his mass as a disruption tool, and basically he's a giant distraction card effect. So you're going to be shooting him with guns, and he has that fat, juicy 60% resist against missiles. Certainly very, very good. On top of that, we have Searing Doom and the Transmutation of Lead, which I usually drop in the front line to lower the melee attack of the Dwarves. And he does also have the Searing Doom, which isn't bad against like blobs of infantry and stuff like that. We got two groups of Poison Hounds, one on the far side and one there and one on the far side over here as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, just the standard anti-Dwarf stuff. Nothing terribly interesting about this build, so my apologies. But again, it does have the Chosen in the back, so hopefully that'll tide you guys over. Here in the front, it's going to be just standard Longbeards, I think. So he's going to be using these guys as the tank. And the Spank, it looks, is going to be, yeah, the Spank is most certainly going to be the Thunderers here. So he's got three standard Longbeards in the front, which would be pretty good against Marauders, and their melee defense will allow them to hold against Chaos Warriors. They, of course, will inevitably lose because they lack AP to fight back against the 100 armor of the Chaos Warriors, but, they hold their own for sure, and they're immune to Psych, so if there's some terror, like the Warp Chicken, for example, they're not going to be running. On top of that, he does have three groups of Thunders in the back, it looks like, two groups of Slayers, one of which is going to be the Giant Slayers and Standard Slayers here, and he does have quite a few Longbeards with great weapons. So it looks like he's going to be using the Longbeards to kind of tank the beating initially. He'll follow up with the Longbeards with great weapons to try and work down my already grinded out Chaos Warriors and, see if he can get his value. On top of that, he does have Unger Iron Fist as well as a Runesmith. Runesmith is going to be coming in just rock hard with that full kit. And that is pretty much it. So guys, without further ado, let's get the show on the road. So right now, let me adjust my chair real quick. It's a little bit funky getting used to this new chair here. My forces are going to be advancing, and there will be a bit of a lull as I'm going to be trying to surround him. So you can see here, he doesn't have any cannons or anything that's kind of really forcing the issue. So on that note, I will be just not falling back, but falling back around his army, I should say. So we're going to be wrapping around his army. We have the horsemen over here. One chariot is going to be crossing over the center to kind of charge from this angle. Now, Longbeards with great weapons actually do have charged defense against large foes, so they can brace, and they're actually not a bad choice against these type of units. I mean, if he's braced against my chariots, he's not going to take a ton of damage. And Warp Chicken is going to be coming forward to survey the scene, just taking a look at the landscape, just, using the tactics of Tzeentch and the Colonel to kind of figure things out. Here he's got his creepy staff right there. Certainly fun stuff. Some of my Hounds will be slipping around the back as well. The Chaos Warhounds going to be looking to get the Hounds either on Slayers or on top of Thunders. Now, Slayers are lightly armored. They have 0 armor. They have low melee defense. And if you actually get Chaos Warhounds on top of them, the Warhounds can actually, yeah, they'll lose, of course. But in terms of cost, they're going to be able to put a bit of a dent in the Slayers, which is very effective for the rest of your army. So I don't like leave them in against the Slayers for a long time. But I charge in, I attack, I pull back, I try and jump, then up and around and get on top of the guns. So we're going to see how that goes. So the main fighting's almost underway here. Chaos Warriors is going to be surging down the hill, and it looks like one of my chariots here is almost in position. We're going to be trying to charge it in here. I think for some reason I thought these were like Dwarf Warriors in the battle, so I was like, oh, I'm just going to charge through those guys. And over here, we're going to be collapsing with everything. So Marauder Horsemen are going to be getting in position. Now, these Thunders have a nice little overwatch position, so I don't want to charge in until they're forced to shoot up here in the front. And the first guns are going to be opening up in the Warp Chicken, so this guy is just straight up going to tank these shots like a boss. And he does come in, and yeah, very, very pitiful damage against Dwarfs, typically speaking, but you know, you might be able to get one of these guys. Looks like he got one there. There's certainly no way that guy's going to survive. Pretty unfortunate little fate there, but he's going to be slamming right there. And we do pull the Slayers in, which is what I wanted. So the Slayers came in here. We get the Hounds around the back. We drop the Searing Doom in the back as well. And the Hounds, a little bit of an awkward angle. They do get caught up in the Longbeards here. And the Chariots do charge in against the Brace Longbeards. So a little bit of sloppy play, but nonetheless good defense here from the Dwarves, I should say. So we do pull the Giant Slayers out into the frontal combat, which is great for us. Now they're fighting Chaos Warriors, which they'll do some damage against. Giant Slayers do have good AP. But now the pressure is just going to be coming from all angles. So we have Hounds coming in the back here. We have Chaos Warriors coming in. The Horsemen are going to be jumping on top of the Thunders. And our other group of Chaos Chariots is going to be slam jamming into the back. Now, balance power is pretty even, like I said. Against Dwarves, it's not really going to change this early in the game, but something that's a little bit tough for my opponent is the fact that my Chosen are in good shape here, and a lot of my infantry did get to the main battlefield without taking a lot of damage. And you can see here he is shooting the Warp Chicken, and he's done good damage, but he certainly needs to be shooting the Chariots and some of these other targets. Chaos Chariots over here are going to be slamming in. You can see the hole that's been left here in this Thunder group by the Chariots. And a Rune of Wrath and Rune is also going to be going down to the Horsemen, so certainly getting a little bit of work in there. On the far side, my Hounds are just kind of going back and forth, trying to find openings. He is able to fend off one group of Chaos Warhounds. But some Chaos Warriors, I believe they get up and around the back, or maybe those are Longbeards. From the distance, they kind of look like Chaos Warriors when you're out this far. But the Chariots are causing a lot of problems. I mean, it is very, very tough for Dwarves to deal with Chariots. Now, one of the main ways for Dwarves to deal with them is to have more space between your forces. Right now, his forces are a little bit close together, so it makes it easier for me to kind of bounce back and forth. But anyways, I'm taking some damage in the front. The Chaos Warriors are taking a bit of a beating, and the Warp Chicken's actually getting very low. Ungrim was able to make some contact. He has also had Slayers on me throughout the battle. I mean, not the entire time, but there was a couple times there. So he seems to be taking that just sheer brute force approach of trying to take down the Warp Chicken, and it's almost paying off. I mean, he's getting pretty low. Granted, the Dwarf front line is starting to falter. We do have Chaos Warriors right here fighting against Longbeards, and the Chosen, of course, have piled in, and they're just making mincemeat of these Slayers, and they've just done a great job here. 32 kills, most of which are probably against Slayers. In the back, he does have some reserves, so he has Miners. He does also have some Longbeards with Grey Opens here. And he has some guns as well, but my Chariots are in pretty good shape. And I also have some Hounds, so we're going to be able to kind of just breathe through the back line and get some pretty good damage in here, and hopefully just clean up this back line, because that's one of the biggest threats to my army. The Dwarven front line typically can't really hang with Chaos. You kind of can if you go with like hammers and just elite troops with Runesmith support and the High King Thorgrim. Sometimes you can catch people off guard, but if you try that, you oftentimes get run over by some of the Chariots and other tools like that, and it can be a little bit tricky to actually endure that against what Chaos can bring. So the Chosen are in pretty good shape here. The Dwarf front line is faltering. The transmutation of lead is going to be going down, lowering melee attack by 26 on all these troops, and also lowering their weapon damage by 25, which isn't as substantial, but nonetheless it's pretty good. And at the back, we've kind of devolved into a bit of a Death Star, but despite the fact that it looks like it's a bit of a ransacking here in the back line, the bounce bar is actually relatively even. The Chariots have cleaned up all the Thunders, but the Dwarves still do have reserves. The Runesmith is in good shape, and here he does have some Longbeards fighting in pretty good shape, and I believe he has Slayers here. And where's Ungrim at? Ungrim's got to be hanging out somewhere. He's probably chasing down the chicken. No, it looks like Ungrim is going to be fighting in the front line, and that sometimes is a mistake a lot of Dwarf players make, is like if they're fighting a very big, fast Lord, they'll get their Dwarf Lord, whether it's Ungrim or Gron Brindle or a character like that, and they'll try and chase down the enemy Lord the entire battle. But if you can't catch him, I think my opponent made a pretty good choice here, just realizing he wasn't going to catch me, so he's just going to sit and fight in the front and get some value at the very least. But if I do come close, yeah, he charges, but you can see very good discipline here from my opponent. He then pulls back and just engages in the front line, knowing he's not going to be able to catch me, so I do like that quite a bit. Right here, the Dwarves have actually won this part of the battlefield. I do drop a Searing Doom on these guys, and I get some okay value, but these Chaos Warriors are going to get crumped. So the Dwarves do have a decent little pocket of strength right here. The Runesmith is in an okay shape, and it looks like Ungrim and these Longbeards might be able to win the front line. Granted, I do have these Chosen who just finished their cleaving crusade for Khorne over here, and these guys are going to be coming back in to help out against Ungrim and whatnot. As far as the back line of the Dwarves go, you can see their Miners. I mean, they're pretty much the last bastion of defense. There's a couple very beat up Slayers. Looks like there's 15 of those guys, and my Throwing Axes are still online, and they're a pretty good dual purpose. Good against Gyrocopters, and also in the late game against Dwarves. Oftentimes, you will break a group of Thunders that might have 15 or 20 models, but chasing them off the battlefield is certainly pretty good, unless they shatter, of course, like this group over here. But I think that's actually just one lone Thunder. This guy's he's gonna be the guy in the brewery in the Great Halls that's telling those haunted stories about fighting the Warp Chicken. So we'll see how that goes for him. Anyways, Chariots are going to be pulling back some of the Slayers. I believe he had some Slayers left here, and it looks like it's just Longbeards are able to get some damage. And the Chaos Chariots are very beat up, but we still have 2 models right here. We have 2 right here, and then we also have a full 3 model count here on the Chariots. So they're pretty much at full fighting capacity. And at this point, it's going to be Ungrim and the Slayers just fighting against the Chosen. I mean, a single group of Chosen could probably kill all 3 of these units here. They could probably kill Ungrim plus the Runesmith. I mean, their damage output is just insane. Chariots are going to be swooping in against these Dwarf infantry right here, and I think that's pretty much going to be all she wrote. I don't think the Dwarves are going to be able to do a whole lot against all these grinding infantry. You know, if I didn't have the Chosen left, if the Chosen had been eliminated earlier, maybe he could grind something out. Just maybe. I mean, because my Warp Chicken's low, my Chariots are pretty low, and Chariots are actually quite terrible against single entities. But the Red Rune is going to be getting pops. Ungrim going to be going quietly into the good night here. You know, fulfilling his Slayer oath, so certainly good stuff there. Sartorial is going to be jumping in the back with the supported throwing axes. Probably some of those axes are going to be hitting him. A little bit of friendly fire. I'm sure they'll be answering Besiege later, which I'm sure will be lovely for them. And that's pretty much going to be all she wrote, as Ungrim is going to be fighting to the bitter end. A true Slayer, a true hero of his people. But, you know, Chaos, as far as matchups go, if you look at the metagame, Chaos has... I think it's one of the hardest counters to Dwarves. It's incredibly hard for Dwarves to win that matchup. And you can, though. It's not like one of those unwinnable matchups like let's say, Dwarves versus Skaven when Skaven first got their DLC, which was almost unwinnable for them. But it's a very hard matchup. I would give it like a 70% in favor of Chaos against Dwarves. But nonetheless, Dwarves can win. And I played against some very good players in the past, like high-level tournament players using Dwarves against their Chaos, and I've been able to win games relatively consistently. But it's still a hard matchup for sure. So I just want to say well played to my opponent, Semper over here. It was it was a fierce one for sure. And I think there's a couple things that I'll actually show you guys right now that I think if you are a Dwarf player and you're playing against Chaos, that must be done. And I'll even show you the deployment and everything. We'll make it a little bit of a extended video / mini guide, but I'll show you guys all the little tips and tricks for Dwarves against Chaos here. But yeah, this build's pretty good. I mean, the Chosen would be the one thing maybe I might consider cutting. I mean, they did pretty good, I guess. Width is always nice, but I guess I have enough backline harass tools. Yeah, I guess the Chosen did good. I mean, but there's so many variations. I mean, some people would cut the Chosen and get a 4th Chariot and then just get some Marauders. I mean, that can be really strong too. Like you could get another one plus 2 groups of Marauders to swarm around the flanks and fight Slayers and guns. So that would probably be a little bit more competitive going for the quad Chariot, but yeah, it's hard to say. So again, well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. And let's go ahead and take a look at a Dwarf build here. So we're going to go to custom battles. So you're playing Dwarves against Chaos. It's certainly a very tough matchup. There's a multitude of ways you can go. You can go with the High King Thorgrim. Personally, I'm a fan of the Rune Lord. Rune Lord is just so effective here because the Runes of Wrath and Ruin are just one of the best ways to actually just pound out and I believe you can have 2. I can't remember in tournaments if you can have the triple Runesmith. I think you can if you have the Rune Lord. I can't quite remember. But anyways, so we're going to go with this for now. And most of you guys probably play ladder anyways, and every tournament has different rules. So not everyone, but a lot of them too. So here, you're going to go with this. These guys are going to be dropping. You need to prioritize the Runes of Wrath rune typically on the infantry just to wear down Chaos Warriors and Chosen. Or if you have a moment in which you need to slow down Chariots, you can do that as well. You're going to have plenty, but make sure to use the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune from the big boy. Use that on like the elite infantry of Chaos. Now, here in the front, you're going to have kind of a layered formation, so you're going to have a bunch of miners. The miners are just going to be taking a beating for the Dark Gods here, or for Grungni and Valaya and all those Dwarven Gods, I should say. And on top of that, going to get some Dwarf Warriors. It's really about the width here, and Thunders, I'm just telling you, just go to town on those guys. They're going to be super good. You get a cannon in the back just to kind of keep the Warp Chicken and company honest, and we'll just put it on the map here so you guys can see the deployment relatively. Let's do Pillar Bones, fine. That's a pretty small map, though. We'll do Crossroads. Crossroads is really good for showing formations and whatnot. Now from here, you definitely want the Dragonback Slayers. Having the slow on those guys is just so incredibly useful. And you want to get another group. I mean, Giant Slayers arguably are pretty damn good. I do like having a group of Giant Slayers. Now your Infantry Corps is going to be pretty weak here. So we probably are going to cut one of those guys. And then from there, I mean, Longbeards are good and all, but I'm just thinking like, it's more about grinding them through the mud. And standard Dwarf Warriors can kind of do the trick against Chaos Warriors. I mean, Longbeards are, of course, going to be better, but these guys can hold quite long. They have good melee defense or great weapon units. And it's more about the Runes of Wrath and Ruin and the guns just kind of dragging them down slowly and slowly. And I feel like a build like this is going to be strong. And I'll show you why in terms of deployment and everything. So we're not actually going to be fighting against the Henwin here as much as he wants to. Look at that. Look at that smiling lizard. He kind of looks like he's smiling a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to say. So let us set up our forces. The Ancient Salamander, the Dreadlord himself over on the other side. So if you're playing against Chaos, here's how you're going to kind of deploy. So you're going to get these guys right here, here, and here. And they're going to be offset from your main formation because you have to kind of be like an onion. You have to make your opponent peel you. Otherwise, if they could just go straight to the juicy center and take out the heart, you're going to lose. And also you want your Dwarven formations, the boxes of your guns to be a little bit tighter. Yeah, like so they can turn faster. Not like super wide, but like kind of in the middle here. Yeah, just like that. That's good. Because if you go like full wide like this, that's going to make you take longer to turn, but if you're in like a tighter box. But again, you will take more damage from like charges and things like that. So these guys here, and these guys kind of here. And now we have the, so this is going to be the main line. Let's go ahead and group these guys up. Set them up like so. Get these Dwarf Warriors kind of right here. could probably go with the triple. Yeah, we could go like this for now. I think we have enough to kind of cover everything. 2, 3, and 4. It's really about space. It's very much like a geometry game. You got to have that like spatial control against chaos, because if you just let them get close to you, and yeah, you'll have these guys kind of offset like this, this, and this. So yeah, the miners are going to get crumped pretty quick, but they will hold for about 15 or 20 seconds, which is going to buy a ton of time for your thunders, and your thunders will scoot up a little bit. Like oftentimes you're going to scoot them up, and yeah, you can get them like a little bit further if you want to. It's kind of it's something you can do when the battle actually starts. So you get these guys like this, and great. So you're going to be like shooting at the forces as they come, and you can get a little bit fancy, but you guys get the picture. It's kind of like that. So from here, you want the Master Rune here. You've got these guys on the flanks kind of protecting. So if there's Marauder Horsemen or stuff, you can drop Runes of Wrath and Rune as well. You're going to have a fat cannon in the back, which is going to be protected by the... you can just protect it with some Dwarf Warriors at first. Slayers are going to be kind of doing a screening service. So for example, if a chariot comes in here, you have to be very disciplined. You keep him here, you intercept, you keep these giant slayers here, you intercept, but as soon as they outrun you, you pull back and defend your guns again. And when chariots come in, those are like top priority. You gun those guys down. In the meantime, you're using Runes of Wrath and Rune to kill the Chaos Warriors in the ground fight, and you have 2 more troops left, so you got 1 back here, and then 1 guy can just be like kind of anchored here in the back. And it's frontline takes fight. You send in these guys. Once they take a beating, you send in the reserves. The cannon's going to be shooting chariots pretty much the entire time, or Chaos Knights. You don't want to be shooting Warp Chicken. Just leave him for last. Unfortunately, the best way to deal with Warp Chicken is just to chase him with Dragonback Slayers, I found. But yeah, build like this, deployment, this is like how you got to do it. The Chaos is going to have trouble. They can get pulled apart, like the guns and the cannons. You can do a lot of work. So this is definitely a pretty strong build. So again, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video plus the breakdown, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.